Good afternoon, Aaron White here with White Stocking Produce. Today I thought I'd just chat with you a little bit about being a beginning farmer and kind of how to find land. With the idea of beginning farmers and finding land, that's the biggest obstacle that beginning farmers face. There are some resources out there that you can use to kind of get you to where you need to be. And I'll kind of share those with you today and some ideas that you can use to kind of help you find that land to best suit you and your operation. A little bit about myself, kind of how I came across my land. A few years ago, my father-in-law, he kind of knew I wanted to get into farming, and he row cropped this land. The row crop part of the land, and he knew that this pasture was coming open for lease, so him and I came over and just chatted with the landowners, and next thing you know, I was buying cows and babies were coming, and I was just like, what in the world is going on? It was a whirlwind, but it's kind of nice to have that help to get going. The second thing kind of happened through the Practical Farmers of Iowa. They have a website called Find a Farmer. And I kind of went onto that website and kind of just looked around, and believe it or not, there was about 20 to 40 acres, that's what it was listed as, adjacent to the land that I was currently leasing. And he was a part of Practical Farmers. He's a landowner and lived in Philadelphia. So I sent him an email, and about 2 weeks later I got an email back, and he was coming back to Iowa and wanted to kind of meet with me, and we chatted, and through email really, and then he came to Iowa, and him and I met together, and we talked and found out that we both had the similar idea of what we wanted to do with grazing, and we came to an agreement, and next thing you know, I was moving my cows over there, part of the rotation through the mob grazing, and it's worked out very well. One idea that I can share with you of being a beginning farmer, oftentimes finding that land is the hardest obstacle that you'll run into, and so the first step you really need to do is get out in your community, be active, so people who know who you are, talk to local farmers, because they like to see young faces or someone new getting into farming, and they really like to help you out the best that you can. Going to local depends on the operation that you're looking at. Going to if you're looking for pasture for cattle, sheep, goats, whatever the case is, find a local farmer that has that operation and kind of just discuss with him some ideas, kick back some ideas, and you never know, he might find some land that might be available that he doesn't want to use, and pass your name along. So that's one idea. The second idea, and I find this really interesting, I'm going to give this a try here within the next 2 years. Drive around your area. Now, a kid down in Alabama, he did this research trying to find land access for beginning farmers, and he kind of drove around the countryside and found all these like little paddocks, little pastures that were just overgrown, fences were a mess, and he kind of went back, saw those pieces of land, kind of marked them down, went back, found out who owned them, and then he went by and contacted every single one of those, and most typically they were elderly people, and they're just basically that little piece of land just had been forgotten. Farmers just didn't think anything of it. After a while it gets to a point where they just won't rent it to people. Farmers just assume that, so they just don't even try. So by going out and finding out who owns those chunks of land, this kid actually contacted them and asked them, would you let me lease this land? I'll rebuild your fence, I'll clear the land off for you. And it was a very high percentage, and they almost all of them said yes. They'd allow him to come on and lease the land. So that's one way of doing it. Even around where I live, a majority of the land that's not being row crop is used for pasture, but there's still little pieces of land, about 10 acres at most, that are good sized paddocks, but no one's using them. And so it's an idea that you can use, you know, just drive around, look for chunks of land just overgrown and fence falling apart, you know. The person that might own it might not even live in Iowa, might live in another state, and that's where he comes back and hunts or whatever the case, you know. So that's one idea to kind of use to help you find land, and I think it's a fantastic idea. You're not stepping on toes, and I think farming is a cutthroat business. You know, a lot of farmers I've seen have done some, you know, pretty bad things, and you got to keep in mind, farming is a livelihood, and when you go around and send emails and letters to landowners going, hey, I'll pay you $50 more per acre than your current tenant, you're taking away that farmer's livelihood, you know, and you're going to step on toes, and you're going to get bad name. And that's what you don't want. You don't want to get that type of reputation, because then it's very, very hard to get that piece of land so that you can use it. So I highly suggest just, you know, working yourself in. It takes time, you know, baby steps. It just takes some time to get into that situation. So, you know, be active in your community. Drive around, look for little pieces of land. You might not get that, you know, 20 head of cattle that you want starting, but you might get 5, and work yourself in. You know, the best form of advertisement, they say, is word of mouth. And so if you do a great job on that little piece of land, they're going to talk to their neighbors. Neighbors are going to see what you're doing, and then they're going to be like, you know, I kind of want them to come onto my land and kind of do what they're doing on their land. So keep that in mind. It's a slow process, but it's definitely doable. And then, of course, I kind of mentioned it earlier, Find a Farmer. They have Practical Farmers of Iowa has a website. You can go on, search in Iowa. I think they have it in surrounding states as well. I haven't paid too much attention to it. I think Missouri is part of it, Minnesota, I believe some Illinois. But go on there, kind of see what people have, what they kind of want on their land, and then contact them. And then, you know, that those two are probably the best, you know, thing that you can do. Now, if you're willing to move, there are some other resources out there. The Iowa State Extension Office has this website for beginning farmers. It's called the Beginning Farmer Center, and they have a place that you can go on and find these opportunities where farmers are getting out of business, and they, one, don't have heirs to take over the business, or two, the heirs don't want anything to do with it, and so they're kind of looking to retire, and they kind of pair up beginning farmers with current farmers, and that's a great resource as well. My wife and I, when we were moving back from Wyoming, we were moving back to Iowa, we kind of were looking at that for a while, but just things didn't play out with it. But it's a great resource. You kind of do an application, send it to them, and then they kind of pair you up, contact the land or the farmers, the current farmers, and then you guys they kind of introduce you and then go from there. It's a great resource. It's the Beginning Farmer Center again, and they got it all over the country. It's not just Iowa. It's Minnesota, Michigan, North Carolina. So it's kind of all over the United States. So there's a third resource that you can use to kind of find that land. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some ideas of what you can use to find that land. Like I said, it's the biggest obstacle, and you know, it's all about relationships. That's really what it is, and you know, creating a common ground between you and the landlord, and you know, finding that land. It's a slow process, but you know, you got to dig your feet in, dig your heels in, and just grind. Put your nose to the grindstone and work, and it will come. So anyway, until next time, happy farming.